Welcome into the OBR streaming network. This is a brand new edition of Things I Think I Know. My name is Brad Ward, your host. The man next to me is our draft expert, the one and only Jacob Roach. Follow him on Twitter at Roachism13. What's going on, Jacob? You've been knocking the Senior Bowl coverage out of the park.
Appreciate it, man.
We appreciate you. Yeah, good stuff, man.
I'm really excited. I'm doing good. I'm excited because tomorrow we got two big events. We got the Senior Bowl at 2:30 and then WWE Royal Rumble at night. So it's a good sports weekend. Yeah.
Is that a thing for you, the Royal Rumble?
Oh yeah, I was at SummerSlam when it was in Cleveland Brown Stadium last year. So,
okay.
So
I've never been able to get into the professional wrestling.
I get it.
It might be. Is it fun? Is it fun live to be there?
It's very fun live. I was there and I thought, that the energy felt similar to a Browns game. Like there was a lot of energy there. Yeah.
Wow. That's wild. That's hard for me to fathom, man. I don't really know. I'm not even going to get into it, but yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. And the Senior Bowl, but the Senior Bowl game isn't really like what people care about, right? They care about the practices, right?
The one thing I will say about the game, because overall the practice, you got like Mike Green and some of these other guys they've already dropped out. Like they weren't there at the last day of practice, and like you've already got guys out there. But one thing I will say is I really do look at the quarterback play in the game because especially if you're talking about like running quarterbacks, they're not really running in practice. So seeing that aspect of their game, the like tuck it down run kind of game, I think that the actual game is good for that aspect.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. Like Milroe and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
Especially Milroe. Yeah.
For you, his hand size at 8.68, does that eliminate him from your consideration? I mean, how badly does that hurt him?
I would say that it doesn't eliminate for me. It kind of pushes him, keeps him where he was, which is like borderline first for me, just because of the upside. Where like I kind of get it now. Some of the issues he has throwing the ball, I'm kind of like, okay, that kind of like it comes out flat out of his hands sometimes, and you're kind of like, well, maybe he's not gripping it very well. Just then you find out he's got the small hands. And when you have a guy whose accuracy from the short and intermediate game is inconsistent, and you find out the hands are of that size, it does give concern that can he get better? Can he get good enough? He can definitely get better, but can he get good enough with that kind of limitation?
And the fumbles have been an issue, right? 14 of them. So, he looked, from the parts that I watched of the Senior Bowl, he looked like he was trying to work on something. He looked very mechanical. It looked very forced, unnatural. You think he was taking some coaching this week?
Yeah, and I think he looked better on Thursday. I thought he looked a little bit more like relaxed. It definitely, you've talked about it, like some footwork issues, accuracy issues, the kind of like you could tell like he was trying to keep his throwing motion controlled, that he was trying to, it was like he was trying to aim the ball, trying to like, he heard all of the criticisms that he had, and he was trying in 2 days to make that change and be like, oh yeah, I know my tape looks like this, but watch this. And it just, to me, it was like, I appreciate seeing him being self-aware and trying to work on these things and trying to show scouts like, hey, I'm trying to work on the accuracy, the short, the intermediate, the stuff like that. Like I'm actively kind of doing those things. But yeah, it felt like he was pressing, especially those first 2 days where he was just really trying to look better than he had.
Yeah, and I almost, at times he looked good enough during the year. So like I would have just liked to seen him just play, just let it loose, a little bit. Yeah. But it's interesting. He is going to be a hot topic for a lot of people. I don't know if I'm where I was at one point about him. I feel like he's fallen a little bit for me as far as he just seems like so much of a project, Jacob.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting to the point. I've had a lot of people talk about like, where do you see him going? Like he's not getting out of the top 20, right? Like things because and I thought if he has that Anthony Richardson level glow up, he might be a top 10 guy because if you look at Anthony Richardson and compare his college production and college tape to Jaylen Milroe's leaps and bounds ahead of him. He's done more than Richardson ever did at Florida, and he's a more polished passer, isn't? And he's got almost as big of an arm, and he's that kind of level of athlete too. So like it's there. He's got to light up the combine, but for me, I'm still okay taking him at 33 because of the upside. Like if you don't take a quarterback at 2 and then he does sit there at 33, or even if you trade back and you get like pick 36 from the Raiders or something of that nature, because he does have just an incredibly high ceiling. I'm not sure. He kind of got me to the where it's like, I don't know that I would like trade back into the first round for him anymore. Like, it's just,
I get that.
Especially the hands, because you don't want to throw everything. You don't want to look at the Senior Bowl and put too much on what happens at the Senior Bowl when you talk about your scouting report. But when you're talking about some of the physical things like, hey, I've seen issues in your game, and now it's a physical limitation that you have in your hand size. And it's like, okay, well, maybe I can't get you bigger hands. And so that kind of hurts.
Yeah. Can't coach that part. So unfortunately, although I think, ball control and ball handling certainly is something you can work on no matter what your hand size is. But
absolutely.
To your point. All right. This is things I think I know. What are some things you think leaving the Senior Bowl practices? Anything that changed for you, or that or was confirmed even for you? Like kind of a sweeping statement you can make about a player or a position or anything.
The trenches are loaded on both sides of the ball, I think. Maybe not so much at offensive tackle as at guard, but if you look at the guard position, because you're going to get a lot of tackles that are going to move inside and play guard. I think there's a lot of a lot of prospects that can make immediate impact on the interior of offensive lines. You look at, and I've been told the Purdue right tackle's name, it's spelled MBOW. I've been told it's just Bo. I've been told it's just Bo. I don't know how accurate that is. Todd McShay was talking about it. He may go from being a right tackle to being the best center in this class because he has center characteristics, athleticism, the intelligence, the strength, the size. He could do that sort of thing. So if you're a team looking for an interior offensive lineman, I think you have a really, really good shot. But on the flip side of things, every team, Cleveland, if I'm Cleveland, I'm adding 2 defensive linemen, one on the interior, one on the outside for sure, because this class is stupid. Darius Alexander, the Toledo D tackle out of nowhere, not on my radar, but it's like, you better draft a couple of defensive linemen in this class because there are a lot of them.
Yeah. It's a deep there. That's great. That's great news. The problem, though, is all these tackles are going to project to move inside, and the Browns probably need a tackle. What do we come away? I mean, how far back are you comfortable taking a tackle that you can project to start if you had to start in there?
I still like the idea of I still think Josh Connerly can start right away, the left tackle from Oregon. I think you can get him
33.
Maybe a first one. You can get him I think you can get him at 33 because what you saw from him at the Senior Bowl was exactly what you saw from him on tape. He has a little bit of he has some issues with power, and there's that one viral tape of Mike Green
destroying him.
Just right through his chest, but the thing is, I saw that on his tape already. He's a little slight. He's only 315 pounds, so you're like, and he was on the right side for that snap, but he just didn't. You could tell his feet weren't set in the right spot. He didn't have his hands where he needed to have his hands, and he just got bulldozed.
So surprised. He came up and like looked like he was getting ready to like. I watched that clip so many times. It went viral, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
and he just comes up like he's ready to, and he looks so surprised. Like he
I,
just, I mean,
I
Mike
thought
Green is something.
I think he thought he was getting a speed move. Like it looks like he's like, oh, this guy, because
Yeah,
that's Mike Green's thing. Like he's a
yeah,
better speed athleticism rusher. I mean, he's got plenty of power, as you saw. But with
yeah.
Josh Connerly, the biggest thing with him is like, I think he just needs 10 to 15 pounds. If you get Josh Connerly to 325, 330, I think he's perfectly fine. This dude played high school running back. He's the best athlete at the tackle position in this class. Like he's a ridiculous talent. So I think you can get him. Mimbu, I think, is going to be nice. Armand Mimbu, the Missouri tackle, he got the flu, it sounds like, so he didn't really get to do much this week. But after that, it starts getting a little bit worrisome. Like some people like Kelvin Banks. I'm not sure where I'm ultimately doing a new big board position rankings post Senior Bowl for the OBR this next week. Sometime it should be out.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to move it there. I would personally feel a lot better about looking at tackle and free agency and taking maybe a developmental guy, because I think there's a lot of really good developmental guys, just because I think slim pickings for starting tackles, especially on the left side. I think the best starting tackles that are ready to play right away are on the right side. And so
Yeah.
I would hesitate to go into the draft thinking you're going to come out with there, because there's just going to be limited supply and a high demand. So that's if you had to pick like, okay, what's one offensive position you absolutely have to find your starter in free agency? I feel like it's left tackle.
Okay. I saw PFF had Jackson Dart as the best quarterback at the Senior Bowl. Tell me your thoughts on Dart. What's your breakdown on him at this point? Do you like him? Do you not like him?
I am.
What'd you say? I don't know.
I am a very known hater of Jackson Dart.
Really?
Yeah, QB7 on my board.
Whoa.
Going this. Yeah, I know. I think he's going up. I think he had a good day. Or not a good day. He had a good week. He had some issues handling snaps. I was very concerned about that. But I saw Pete talk about this with Jeff yesterday about a lot of the centers that were playing weren't natural centers and were new to snapping, and there were some issues there. And I hadn't even really thought about it from that angle, and he's 100% correct. So I kind of am like, okay, maybe that part of it doesn't bother me as much, because he can figure it out when he's playing with a true blue center. The thing about Dart is I see the physical stuff. I don't know. I look at the cookie cutter hand holding offense that he was in with Lane Kiffin, and it concerns me with his ability to read defenses. Now, one could throw that argument back in my face and say we have seen Kevin Stefanski do the exact same thing for quarterbacks, and why couldn't he do it for Jackson Dart? And that's a valid point. I look at him. I thought he had a really good Thursday, because they didn't let the quarterbacks throw very much in these practices. Like I felt bad. Like you would see Jackson Dart throw like 3 passes and then maybe see him a half hour later. I was watching this tape. I'm like, what are we doing here? I would say he was the best quarterback there. I would also say I don't think that bar is very high. I think the quarterback play there was really poor. I will say when you watch Dart, he's got the arm talent. He's got the athleticism. Kind of a weird delivery, but I kind of like it, the way he kind of throws the football.
It's I've been watching his games, and then I watched every throw he threw at the Senior Bowl in some thread somewhere. And he looks like he uses his hips well. He uses his body to throw, which makes him more accurate, I think, because he's not like all arm trying to throw it. And he's got a good enough arm for sure, but it's very compact. and he gets rid of it pretty quickly. And he's kind of very like in a phone booth. And I like that, when there's pressure around him, it feels like he can get rid of it in the same release, method that he does. He's not real like wide or big, or he doesn't need a big step to throw the ball. He just is kind of gets rid of it with a little flick and a little turn of the hips. And he gets it down there pretty good. So
yeah, he's got an NFL arm. There's really no. I'm very interested to see him at the combine. Like I think that's really, and then he's a big guy I'm watching in the game tomorrow. Him and Jaylen Milroe. I want to see if they both play. I want to see what they look like in the actual game. Dart is the one that I'm the most willing to move up. And there's some people that I've been very harsh on him, and I think I've been a little too harsh on him. But I said this, and I'll say this publicly now. I would rather take Jackson Dart, who I'm not very high on day 2, somewhere in day 2 of the draft later, maybe around that Buffalo pick, if he's there, something like that. I would take him day 2 before I'd take Shedeur at 2.
Yeah.
Because I think he's got more talent. Like, because I think in terms of like, if Jackson Dart can read an NFL defense, if he can process and go through his reads, if you can get him to that step, he doesn't have physical limitations. My issues with him are not as physical. There's some footwork stuff and some technical stuff that needs to be cleaned up, and that's fine. You're going to have that with a college quarterback. But like with Shedeur, I question arm strength. I question athleticism. I don't question that stuff with Jackson Dart. Like, as long as he can take the snaps from under center, I can say that, I think Kevin Stefanski can work with that. But I'm just kind of low on him, and it all kind of stems from the Lane Kiffin and the processing stuff.
Which is interesting because, I had the same conversation kind of with Casey, because he's low on him. I think he's going in the first round. Not because he deserves to be graded up there, but just because teams are so thirsty and they're going to like what they see and they're going to reach on him. I really feel confident in that. But the reason, like, he gets dinged for being in that offense, but we haven't seen him in any other, like, So yeah, he was throwing to wide open guys. You need to see him make tight window throws, sure, but like, when does that? When does he have to prove that to you? How can he prove that to you as a somebody who's grading him? How can he, prove to you that he can process or can, get through his reads when he didn't have to in college as much? I think I saw him do it sometimes, in college and get through his reads, from one side of the field to the other. And so I know he can do it. I just don't think he had to. So how can he prove you otherwise, since he's not really going to be in a situation to do so until he's drafted?
And that's the issue with it, that's what I was hoping to get from the Senior Bowl was, hey, let me see how quickly he picks up a new playbook, how quickly he's able to get thrown into an offense, because they're not being put in the most team-friendly offenses, and you're going to find in football easy. They're not getting coached by Lane Kiffin, who I think is one of the better college offensive minds there that we've really ever seen. I think Lane Kiffin's a heck of an offensive coach, but like, he does what Kevin Stefanski does, and he puts his quarterbacks in really good position. I think you're talking me into Jackson Dart, Brad, and I just realized it.
You what?
I think you're talking me into Jackson Dart right now. You're talking me, and you're getting me, and I did not know that this is how this conversation was going to go. That's part of why I want to see him tomorrow in the actual Senior Bowl. If I can see some situations where it's like, that was not his first read. You know what I mean? It's like, if I can see him do that, like Spencer Rattler last year, he only played that first drive in the actual Senior Bowl, but you watched him do everything you wanted to see an NFL quarterback do, go through progressions, throws a beautiful touchdown in the back of the end zone, some things like that. You're like, okay, I can at least see it. right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if Jackson Dart didn't get a ton of opportunities here, I did think he progressed well throughout the week. I didn't think that it was a great week for him, but he got better. He showed me some of the things I wanted to see. I'm excited to see what he does tomorrow if he plays in the game. But that's a problem because you bring up a great point in the sense that, like, well, when is he going to get that opportunity to show it to you? And it's like, that's why you got to take a leap of faith.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no way for him to prove the doubters wrong of the offense. So, like, you know what I mean? He's in a tough spot. Tennessee kind of does the same thing to wide receivers, right? We used to do that with their offense. Like, well, they don't run any routes there. They at least have an opportunity to go show you that they have a legit route tree at the combine, and you know what I mean? But you can't, like, when is there another situation outside of maybe the Senior Bowl where you can say, oh, let's see if Dart can get through these reads, or if he can make some, small window throws or some anticipatory throws that we haven't seen him have to make up to this point. Certainly there were times, but, you had good games and bad games in college. There were certainly some bad games that were scary, but I mean, like the Georgia game, the win over Georgia, was that 23 or 24? I think they beat Georgia this year, right? Pretty handily. I think that's the one we watched on the React. But
I'll look it up.
Yeah, but I was impressed in that game, especially. We're talking, that's a real defense, and they were all over him, and they ended up coming back and winning pretty handily, I believe.
He's one of those guys where this quarterback class is so weird. And that's probably, you kind of talked about that with, like, oh, he might not deserve being a first round pick, but because of this class, he's one of those guys where there's a lot of guys that are physically limited, Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, Kyle McCord, like where they don't have these big arms and some things like that, but they have the, like, game manager side of things, or however you want to put it, where I think Dart's kind of somewhere in the middle, because he is, in a sense, a game manager because it's a simple offense, I guess, but, like, because he's getting those opportunities, but he has the physical talent. It's absolutely there. It's just like, for me, I'm not going to be able to be in those conversations, but, like, in those rooms when they have this conversation, when they talk to him, but, Kevin Stefanski is going to be able to talk to him, look him in the face, and just be like, okay, like, what progressions do you go through in these situations? And they can do these sorts of things. And I'll say this, I really am a believer in Kevin Stefanski, and I think that he is picking the quarterback. I really think that the quarterback that gets picked is his guy. If he picks Jackson Dart, I'll be okay with it.
Yeah. That is certainly a thing I think I know. I agree with you 100%. And we talked about this on All Eyes on Cleveland too. Like, Barry should have his input and you should have all your input and stuff, but this should be Kevin's pick. Like, this season should be a pivot back. We're calling it full Stefanski, right? This is the pivot back to full Stefanski, but, like, he should be able to pick his guy this year, out of the veteran free agency pool, out of the draft, whatever. But he should have the say here on who he thinks can operate best, and probably how a guy like Dart does on the whiteboard is going to have a big impact, right, in these meeting rooms. So interesting stuff there. So, I'm writing an article right now. It'll come out Sunday morning, I believe. And it's a little bit, I got into it last night a little bit, and I probably angered some people with it, but it's this, right? But the thing I think I know about the Browns is that they have to balance. This season is a balancing act for me, Jacob. It is,
okay.
How do you win enough to play competitive football, bring your players along, keep them engaged, And if you don't love Shador or you don't love Cam or you can't get Cam and you don't love Shador, and then what's your plan for your future franchise quarterback? And so how do you keep your job by winning enough to keep your job and then come back, and if that's the plan, and then come back in 26 and try to get a guy while winning enough games that you're not going to be at the top of the draft? Like, how do you see what I'm saying? It's
Mhm.
like they're trying to, you know, thin a small hole. You know, it's a needle that they're
Yeah.
trying to, put the thread through here, to make this work. And I'm sure they have a plan, but like, um, how would you approach this?
That's the you can't I don't think you keep your job if you pick at the top 10. So I totally see what you're saying because it's like
Exactly.
if you want to be within striking distance of a significant quarterback in the draft, you typically need to be around the top 10. If it's a good class, if it's because even in this class, the quarterbacks are going to go like, say, the Browns pass on Shadur, say, even the Giants do, he's not going to get past like Vegas at 6.
No.
Like it's not happening in my mind. Rather he deserves it
Right.
or not, I don't see it happening. So that's about as far back as you're going to see. And I know Bo Nix goes at 12 and he looks good, but that was like a very historic class last year. You need
Yes.
to be somewhere around the top 10. Somewhere around the top 10's 5 or 6 wins, probably. So I don't see you keeping your job. I think it's one of those things where you try to build the absolute best team around the quarterback position and just try to try to do a masterclass coaching job. I mean, there have been teams, I mean, Mike Tomlin does it every year. It doesn't matter who his quarterback is. I know he doesn't win anything past that, but you think about like there were some things that didn't go right for the Browns, but the Browns felt like a team of destiny in 2023 in a sense that they were red hot going into the playoffs. Like,
Yeah.
the interceptions caught up to them and they just couldn't overcome it. But like when Aaron Rodgers won the Super Bowl, they were a wild card team that just got red hot in the playoffs. Like they got red hot. I mean, look at the perfect Patriots, and they lost to what the Giants were 9-7 or 10-6
Yeah.
that year, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like you can do those sorts of things, and I understand that like we're looking at 2 really good quarterbacks, and there were 4 really good quarterbacks in the championship games this year. But to me, I think you build if you do not have a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts, you build a really good team and you find a quarterback that is good enough that can work your system. The Lions did it. Like somebody, did you hear this? Has Casey told you who he called? It was either Casey or Nick the other day. They labeled Jared Goff, that Jared Goff is the Tom Brady of Baker Mayfield's.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
I sat there and I looked at him and I was like, oh my goodness, that's great. So like you build this great team around Jared Goff, who is a good quarterback. He's the high end of mid, is what Casey has said about him.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you won 15 games doing that, and you had a shot in the playoffs. Yeah, it fell apart. I understand that, but I think, you take Abdul Carter and you have a crazy talented defensive line. And like we won a lot of games with PJ Walker and Deshaun Watson and DTR because we had a really, really good defense, and the offense was being coached up and put in positions to be good enough. So that's the approach I would take.
Okay. So you're taking Carter at 2, or are you looking to trade back?
The only way I'm going to trade back is if I get a future first. So
Right.
I got
Giants, Raiders.
Yeah, you got to get me a future first, and then like I would like another top 100 pick this year if I can get it. But if it was me, I would probably just take Carter. I just think that he's just got just so much upside.
Got it. That's interesting. I am in the I think I'm in the business right now of trying to get the Giants to want to come up, or even the Raiders to want to come up, just because if the guy's not here that you love, in this class.
Yeah.
You got to have a plan on the horizon, and that plan will probably involves a first round pick next year, because in my opinion, if all works out, best case scenario, and you are competitive this year with a Cousins or a whoever, it doesn't matter, whoever they land on, and
Yeah.
it works well enough to keep his job, this regime to see the 26th draft, then you want to have enough ammunition to come up and get your guy of the future. Otherwise, the cycle just continues,
Yeah.
right? Like
Mhm.
at some point, you have to stop. The cycle has to stop. You have to be able to take a guy that you love, or you luck into something, right? But like, I don't think that that's a good enough plan as just hoping to luck into something. And
Yeah.
that's the balancing act I'm talking about, right? Like,
Yep.
how do you win enough games without making a bad decision, like reaching on a Shador or trying to take a shortcut, right? You know, a
Mhm.
lot of fans want them just to take a quarterback because it's a quarterback in the top two, right?
Yeah.
And um it's wrong, it's a bad process, you can't do it, but you understand a little bit where they're coming from, because it's
Mhm.
like, when else are you going to have this opportunity again? So I
I-
understand what the thought behind it. It's just bad processing. You can't do it because you're missing on another player in doing that, and you're probably missing on the guy you're taking if you don't love him, right? So you're
yeah.
not just missing once, you're missing twice. And you're talking about generational talents up there in the top six, right? So
Yeah.
it's it's a balancing act. It's what I'm saying. You've got to compete. You've got to field this team. For me, it starts with the run game in the trenches, the defense. You got to make playing quarterback easy for the Browns this year, which Stefanski can do, but
Yep.
you've got to be able to run the football and all that stuff too. So
Mhm.
Carter makes sense. But I also think you've got to think about the future too, in that at some point, you can't just flounder and hope a free agent comes available, you know. And this sort of Casey was kind of pushing back against me last night. He was like, "Nah, you think you just tread water, try to figure it out the next year. Tread water, try to figure it out the next year." I'm like, "That's insane. You can't
Yeah.
do. You've got to have a plan."
Yeah.
Um, and so the balancing act of competing while not taking those shortcuts or those gambles is a tough balancing act to do when the seat's hot, when the seat's
Mhm.
warm, right? And so that's where I'm at, and I think it makes for a very intriguing offseason.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. Like I just I
Yeah.
because the off season's like you're just chilling, and then something crazy happens. Like,
Oh,
and you just
love it.
don't know
Yeah.
when it's gonna happen. Like, but no, I'm with you. I mean, because you said you talk about trying to get within striking range to get that quarterback. Look at Pittsburgh. They're
Yeah.
never in that spot. They're good enough to make the playoffs, but they're never in a spot to get a franchise quarterback
The next
because
guy.
yeah, but like if you say what did the Browns their pick was what like 24 last year or something if they had it was like 22 or
Yeah.
24 when they went to the playoffs. Say you trade back and you get the Raiders pick, and let's say the Raiders are they get pick 15 and you got pick 24. 15 and 24, that's a good ammo with something else to get into the top 10. That's you're not trading like multiple years firsts in the future. You're trading those and maybe another future one to get up there because they're getting 2 firsts in 1 year. It's easier to go up and get a quarterback if you do it that way. And if you move back, especially if you move back to like 6 and Abdul Carter's there anyway.
Hmm. Yeah. Unlikely, but
Right.
that's where the Giants get interesting, because the Giants might want quarterback. They may want
That's
Shador. We don't know at this point. And
what I've heard.
to
I've
move
heard they
one
love him.
spot, huh?
I've heard they love him.
Yeah. So that could be. I mean, you could move back to. You could get Carter and um you could get out of here with Carter and a first next year, potentially. Best case
Yeah.
scenario, right?
Yeah, if they get desperate. Yep.
At 3, and then you get some draft ammunition next year, and then you put that together with your 2027 first. Now you have 3 firsts, 2 in the same year, and you can get up in the top 10 and try to take a guy you want. But there's so many variables too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we think this draft class is going to be good in 2026, Jacob, but guys may go back to school, guys may not have a good year. There's just so many factors we don't know. You can't bank on it either. So while you can plan for it, you've got to be able to pivot at all times. And it just makes for very interesting. The whole thing is very interesting. It's a balancing act that they're going to have to manage while their jobs are on the line, and that's what makes it so difficult. You know what I mean? So
I'm glad I'm not doing it. That's all I know.
It's tough. I'm glad they're giving, at least from the outside looking in, the breadcrumbs would tell me it feels like they're giving Stefanski, not that he hasn't had control before, but they're just letting him do it his way all the way.
Yep.
I think that's the right move.
If you're going to go out, you got to go out your way.
Yeah. And I believe in who he is as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And, a couple of years back, we used to say, man, Stefanski never loses 2 in a row, right? He always bounces back. And I'm kind of looking at like the seasons like that. Like, this is the kind of guy that I can't see going 3-14 and then turning around and having the same thing happen to him again.
I don't see it.
So,
yeah, I'm with you on that.
Things I think I know. Things we think we know. Any parting words, Jacob, before we get out of here tonight?
Just, enjoy your guys' weekend and, spay and neuter your pets.
Well said. Bob Barker that did that?
Bob Barker, yeah.
Bob Barker. Bryce is wrong, Bob. Yeah. Good stuff. As always, Jacob, you're killing the draft coverage. Keep it locked at theobr.com. The link will be in the description below to get over there and become a VIP member. We have insider news every day these days. It is totally worth the small price that you pay to get in there. Do you still get access to Paramount with that?
Last time I knew you did, but
I'll find out for you. I think you get access to Paramount Plus with it. So the subscription, the insider stuff. It's totally worth it. Just reach out to Barry, reach out to me. My email's down below, but there are links there. There's a discount as well. The giraffe coverage is worth it alone. The work that Jacob's doing, Casey's doing, everybody's doing, it's all worth it. So get over there. This is the time of year right now when it's all going down now until April and then beyond. It'll shape this team for the future. So lots of draft picks this year, lots going on. Keep it locked at the OBR. Good job, Jacob. Thanks for stopping by. Things I think I know. Follow me on Twitter at Roachism13 for Jacob Roach. My name is Brad Ward. Thanks for tuning in. Hit like and subscribe on your way out, and have a wonderful weekend.